She never said it out loud, but you could feel it. The way her eyes held a second of hesitation before she smiled. The way her body leaned in, yet something about her presence stayed just out of reach. She looked whole, yet incomplete. Like someone had once promised her something sacred and left before they delivered it. And you, like most, probably thought you needed to earn her affection through charm or effort. Maybe you assumed her resistance meant she needed convincing, but she wasn't waiting to be impressed. She was waiting to be understood, and she spent years watching men fail that test. There is a part of her that no one sees unless she chooses to show it. It's not a weakness. It's the center of who she is, where her instincts are sharp and quiet, where her memories gather in silence. It's the part that still remembers what betrayal felt like before she knew what to call it. Most never get close to it, not because she's hiding, but because most people don't know how to approach without taking, and she's tired of being taken. That's the part of her you need to touch. Not with your hands, with your presence, with your capacity to notice what others missed, to sit with the discomfort of not knowing and still choose to stay. That's the kind of touch that leaves an imprint. But here's what no one teaches you. Her distance isn't always about you. Sometimes it's the echo of a past that taught her love comes with conditions. That to be close is to owe something. That intimacy is a debt, not a gift. So she learned to protect herself in quiet ways. A sharp remark, a distracted glance, a sudden shift in tone. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll think it was moodiness, or maybe she lost interest. But if you're listening, if you're really attuned, you'll recognize it for what it is. A test of safety. Not safety in the obvious sense. Emotional safety. The kind that says, I'm not going to use your truth against you. I'm not going to flinch when you show me your real self. I'm not going to rush you through your silence so I can feel better about mine. Most men don't pass that test. They show up loud, confident, ready to prove they can lead, but they haven't led themselves through anything. They can win her attention, maybe even her body, but they never reach the part of her that actually remembers. And so she forgets them. But when a man touches the part of her that doesn't need to be fixed, only felt, she remembers. She remembers because it's rare, because it's steady, because it doesn't demand or chase or plead. It listens. It responds, not reacts. It leaves space for her to exist without being edited. That's the part most never make it to, not because they're incapable, but because they're too consumed by what they want her to feel, rather than what she's already carrying. And if you can't hold her at her depth, she'll never trust you at her surface. She's not difficult. She's just done wasting softness on those who treat it like a weakness. What she's protecting isn't a game. It's a record of who stayed when she was most unlovable. And if that list is short, it's not because she's cold. It's because she's learned how much it costs to be open in a world that keeps asking her to shrink. You don't earn her by being nice, or successful, or saying the right things. You reach her when you stop trying to perform and start listening to the pauses, the ones in her speech, the ones in her breath, the ones in her eyes. What makes a woman unforgettable isn't what you give her. It's what you allow her to remember about herself when she's with you. When she speaks about her dreams and you don't interrupt. When she talks about something painful and you don't shift the subject. When she's quiet and you don't rush in to fill the space. Because that silence isn't empty. It's full of everything she's never had the room to feel. Touch her here, where her guard is up but her soul wants to reach through. She might not say anything at first. She might test you with sarcasm or indifference. That's not resistance. That's memory. That's her instinct saying, don't trust too fast. Don't fall for someone who won't stay through the mess. And make no mistake, there will be mess. Emotional, human, imperfect. If you want to be remembered, learn how to meet her there. Not to fix it, not to clean it up, just to be with her in it. Without trying to explain it away or make it easier for yourself. Because if she has to carry both her pain and your discomfort with it, she won't stay long. She's done with relationships that demand she shrink her truth so someone else can feel like a man. What she needs isn't a protector from the world. It's someone who doesn't become another reason she has to protect herself. So she watches, closely. Not just what you say, but how you respond when she's uncertain. When she's quiet. When she's emotional in ways that don't flatter you. Can you sit with her grief without trying to solve it? Can you respect her anger without trying to out-talk it? Can you hold her tenderness without needing it to become something else? If not, she'll feel it. And no matter how attractive you are, how successful, how charismatic, she'll begin to retreat. Not out of punishment, out of preservation. She's been through enough to know what looks like love and what lasts like love aren't the same. And you, if you're listening, have a choice. Not to manipulate, not to perform, but to become. Become someone who touches without reaching, someone who listens without waiting to speak, someone who sees what's beneath the mask and doesn't flinch. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be honest, not just with her, with yourself. Because most men who failed to touch her deeply never learned how to touch themselves that way. They fear their own silence. They run from their own grief. They confuse control with strength. And so when they stand in front of a woman with depth, they try to shrink her to match their own emotional limits. It never works, because a woman who has depth isn't looking for someone to match her rhythm. She's looking for someone who respects it, who doesn't turn away when it moves too slowly or pulses with intensity. If you can sit with her long enough to understand the way her silence speaks, she will remember you. Not as someone who filled a role, but as someone who made her feel less alone in a world that keeps trying to flatten her. And if you can't, she'll forget you just like she did the others. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Because her heart is not a performance stage. It's not a place to rehearse being loved. It's the final act, where only truth belongs. When you reach that part of her, the part that no longer tries to impress, you'll see a version of her no one else gets. And if you're not ready for that, she'll sense it long before you admit it. So be ready. Because once you touch her there, everything else changes. You won't recognize the moment it shifts. There won't be a dramatic conversation or a turning point you can point to later. But something in her will begin to change the day she realizes you can hold her without trying to contain her. She watches how you respond to discomfort. Not in public, not when you're composed, but in those private, unspectacular moments where your pride has nothing left to hide behind. She notices what you do when she speaks without softening the truth. When her emotions don't align with your expectations. When the version of her that shows up isn't convenient. She's not asking you to agree with everything she feels. She's watching to see if her full emotional range is allowed to exist in your presence without becoming a threat to your identity. Most men aren't prepared for that. They're drawn to her openness until it exposes something in them they've never had to confront. Maybe it's their inability to sit with uncertainty. Maybe it's the pressure to be in control. Maybe it's the fear that they're not enough when they're not fixing or leading. But she doesn't need you to lead. She needs you to witness. She needs to know that when she stops being charming, you won't turn cold. That when she's grieving something she can't name, you won't disappear behind a wall of logic or silence. She needs to know you can stay conscious when the atmosphere changes. You'd be surprised how many men never notice the moment they start retreating. Not physically, emotionally. They lean out when it stops being easy. They tense when she gets quiet. They try to steer the interaction back towards something more familiar, more flattering. But intimacy doesn't live in comfort. It lives in how you respond when your image is no longer enough to hold her attention. If you can only engage when you feel desired or admired, you haven't learned how to relate. You've learned how to perform. That's the moment she begins to withdraw. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't owe you that. She just stops reaching for something you've shown her can't hold weight. And by the time you notice she's gone, the space between you will already feel like distance you can't cross. You might think it's something she needs to work through. You might convince yourself she was too complicated or demanding. But if you were honest, you'd realize she simply grew tired of having to translate her emotional life into something you wouldn't resist. She won't forget you because of what you gave her. She'll remember what she had to withhold. And if she offered you the part of her that doesn't come with a script, the part that's unguarded, raw, inconsistent, you were given something few ever get. Not access, but trust. And that trust wasn't won through charm. It was earned through your ability to stay present when she had nothing to offer you except truth. The irony is that most men think emotional connection is about finding the right thing to say. But it's your restraint that matters more. Your willingness to let her speak without redirecting the moment toward yourself. Your ability to absorb her frustration without trying to resolve it too quickly. Your refusal to turn her vulnerability into a problem you need to fix so you can feel useful again. The men who stay connected the longest are not the ones who understand her. They're the ones who don't punish her when they don't, when she's angry and you don't shrink, when she's quiet and you don't push, when she says something that challenges your narrative and you don't take it personally. That's what tells her she's safe, not the words. The stability. You don't have to be fluent in her emotional language. You just need to be fluent in your own reactions. That self-awareness is what creates the space for her to show up fully, not edited, not adapted, just whole. And once she knows you can hold that you won't tighten the moment she becomes too much, something shifts in her. Not all at once, gradually, quietly. She begins to trust that she doesn't have to over-explain herself just to be received. It's in that space that a deeper form of connection takes shape. Not romantic tension, not sexual energy, recognition, that you're not just there for the best parts of her. You're there for the entire arc, even the parts that never made it into her curated identity, the grief she never vocalized, the fear she disguised as independence, the emotional weight she learned to carry alone because it was safer than asking for support and being let down again. And you, if you've done the internal work, won't flinch. You won't need to define what's happening. You won't chase certainty. You'll just remain present because you've stopped confusing discomfort with danger. That kind of presence doesn't announce itself. It's not performative. It's felt, like silence that doesn't demand filling, like eye contact that isn't searching for approval, like a hand on her back that says, "I'm here," without needing a reaction. Most men never realize that true intimacy isn't created through effort. It's allowed through containment. And the kind of containment that matters isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about holding the emotional weight of a moment without trying to redirect it toward resolution. You want to be unforgettable. Stay when it's no longer flattering. Remain available when there's nothing left to gain. Don't disappear when the narrative shifts away from you. That's what she'll remember. Not your best moments, your most grounded ones. The way you responded when she was difficult to love. The way your tone didn't change when she didn't agree with you. The way you made her feel seen without having to become smaller just to keep your attention. Even if the relationship doesn't last, that memory will. Not because she's clinging to the past. Because it left a mark. You became a reference point for what it feels like to be fully met. And when a woman is fully met, she doesn't forget it. She calibrates everything that comes after by it. And you, even if you never return, will remain part of that calibration. Because in a world full of men who need to be the center of gravity, you allowed her to be whole without orbiting around you. That's not about power. That's about clarity. She didn't have to wonder if you could hold space for her. You proved it when you didn't try to control it, and for that, you'll remain in the part of her that keeps score, not of who won, but of who stayed conscious. No one can take that from you, and no one else will ever touch her quite the same way again. If this message reached a part of you that rarely gets touched, then you already know this isn't just content. It's a mirror. And if you're ready to go deeper into the emotional patterns, the quiet wounds, and the kind of self-awareness that changes how you love and connect, then stay with us. Subscribe to the channel. Because every video here is built to challenge illusions, awaken clarity, and give you the words you didn't know you needed. Until now. If you felt something tonight, share it in the comments. Let it be seen. You never know who's reading and healing because of it. And if you're walking through something personal, silently, just know you're not alone. You were never meant to carry this journey without understanding. We'll keep making videos that speak to the parts of you the world forgets. You just have to keep showing up. See you in the next one.